Hello. I just read David Copperfield from Dickens, and I wanted to leave a short commentary on it. And not too much because everyone talks about Dickens, but I felt like, since it took me kind of like a bit more than a week to read it, and it's the first Dickens I read also, like cover to cover. I tried to read him before, but it was when I was learning English, and I didn't really like reading any sort of Victorian novels when I was sort of getting into the language. It's they really like the words, you know what I mean. But yeah, I went back to him because of seeing so many people in love with Dickens. And the other novel that I was close to finishing, but I just wasn't understanding anything. I didn't have the English level at the moment. Was Great Expectations, which it's everyone's favorite Dickens, but in the moment I just couldn't appreciate it. So I leave it for another moment, another time. I think I had enough Dickens for a while now. David Copperfield was his favorite novel, and I hope it's not his best novel because I expected a bit more, especially towards the second half. This book starts really well in the sense that like you are there and you are really engaged in the first pages. You're like already hating and loving characters, but it loses strength throughout the book. I think it's a bit after halfway that it's just like the same thing over and over and over, and just like him trying to sort of like leave everything said. It's very clear. Like I can see why. Like, by the way, the introduction is quite good, and I can see why, as they say there, this book was sort of like semi-biographical or inspired in his own life, because definitely you can see him sort of like trying to tick all the boxes of what his life was like, I guess. That being said, I actually really like the book. I don't normally read books that don't teach me anything. With Dickens, if anything, the only thing I would feel that I learned a little bit is a completely different form of writing. Like, Dickens used to write. I think he used to publish chapter by chapter or something like that. He wouldn't publish the books all at once, so he was basically just producing, like continuously producing new works, and and you can see that in the way the chapters and everything is oriented. It's like it feels like a TV show, in the sense that like the end of every chapter sort of wants you to read the next one, and the title of the next chapter is already telling you a lot about the chapter. I noted some of the chapters here, and I think that they also sort of like illustrate quite well the simplicity of Dickens, that every chapter can be summarized in just the title. But I don't say this as a critique. I actually think it's quite good, and I understand why people wants to read Dickens in Christmas, and why they feel like they're going to a familiar place when they read him. I definitely had that sort of cozy feeling, which is good given the fact that before this I was reading the Critique of Pure Reason, so it's definitely good to have something like this to sort of like reset. But yeah, some of the chapters are like, and this honestly is the book. Like, if you read every chapter of this book, you pretty much get like a lot from the book, which I find very interesting, because I mean obviously there's the substance is throughout the chapter, but yeah, they truly they truly encompass the overall narrative. Chapter 1, I am born, then I observe, I have a change, I fall into disgrace, I begin my own life on my own account, and I don't like it. I am a new boy in more than one sense, good and bad angels, a loss, a greater loss. I am involved in mystery, another retrospect, the tempest. A new wound, the new wound and the old, absence, return, a light shines on my way, a last retrospect. So yeah, you can see there that definitely, like, I think the titles tell a lot about both Dickens' writing and the chapters themselves. So yes, it is personal. It feels personal when you read it, and I think that's good. I think that's good as a book for starting with Dickens, especially if you're like, I mean, if you were only planning to read one book from Dickens and you don't want to read more than that because you're not like compulsively reading like others, then maybe it wouldn't be the book I would choose because it's also one of the thickest. And also, I don't think it's his best work, his best book. I hope, because with the name he has as a writer, I would expect more than this, definitely. But if you're planning to read all Dickens or most of Dickens because of that same reason, then I think this is a great place to start. I definitely felt like after sort of like trying and failing for other reasons, for linguistical limitations other than anything else, with other of his works, reading this was actually like amazing, especially because I took a year in between, which was basically, the year it took me to sort of catch up with especially focusing and reading in English, like, because my English level was always good, like, I mean, from the last 10 years, but when it comes to actually reading the pages, I get so distracted because it takes me longer to read. That's no longer the case, and I can tell you that this is a walk in the park. This is probably the easiest book I've read in my whole life, like, genuinely, even if I count like child's books like Alice in Wonderland or The Little Prince. This is the easiest, the most relaxed reading I had in my whole life. And it, as I said, it keeps you engaged. You like, the characters are very clearly drawn. I like him. I think sometimes he's quite original describing some characters. Sometimes I think he overdoes it. Like, it's like he knows his characters and he describes them very well. Sometimes I feel like he over describes them. He sort of like, because I think that he had this ambition to get to as big of an audience as he could reach. So he tries to make sure that everyone is sort of like up to date with every single character, and you do remember them because of that. And that's also why I think it's one of the easiest books I ever read, because in every single sense he's like just taking you everywhere. There's there's not really any complexity here, in my opinion. But yeah, like, for example, I remember when he describes Uriah, which is one of those characters that like you feel immediate disgust, and you don't even know why yet. But when he speaks of Uriah, I remember that he talks about shaking his hand and feeling like this guy's hand is like a dead fish or something like that. And I think that's like an interesting relation. He has many things like that. Yeah, like, you definitely get different, like, I think that he does he makes sure and is almost infallible in the sense that like every single character will awaken a certain feeling. Like, I couldn't hate more the Murdstones, for example, Mr. and Mrs. Murdstone. Steerforth sort of like is the kind of guy that like either you identify with or you admire him, and then you are disappointed. Not really. Personally, from the first moment they spoke, I was like, many things here are very predictable. Like, I knew what was gonna happen with Steerforth and Emily from like the minute they were sitting on the table and they talked about the Steerforth and Emily was smiling. And that's like hundreds of pages before anything happens. By the way, yeah, this is too late, but I don't believe in the spoilers thing. Like, if anyone believes the cult that like listening to a spoiler about a book will destroy the book, I'm sorry, I'm always gonna give spoilers. Anyways, I don't expect anyone to listen to this video, but if you do, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is not your place. I'm definitely not gonna contain myself because I think that what matters about a book is not the end. I mean, the end matters overall, but as a reading experience, what matters is the process of reading a book and how the writer takes you there. Of course, there is a sort of enchantment that one wants to save when they read a book, but I am sorry, I am highly disenchanted when I read books in general. I tend to know everything about them before. So yeah, what else? Yeah, well, I would not get this book, like this edition. you can see how already it's fading away. I know these editions from Penguin. I generally don't like Penguin editions. Like, I like Penguin editions, but I don't like the way they assemble them, or however you say that. Like, they are very fragile. They always, like, the pages are fine. I mean, they are very fine sometimes. I wouldn't say that much. I think the pages are fine, but as you can see, this is just gonna be a brown book in like a few months. Mainly because now I finished it and I'm not gonna be moving it around. But if you take more than a week and you are not as careful as I was, because I know how these books are, you would probably finish the book and finish like the book without any sort of like images or any white over brown at all, which is fine. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but if you're buying this book because it looks nice, it will not look nice after a while. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, maybe try to get an every month edition. I'm definitely more for their quality when it comes to the way they assemble their books and the pages, or no, Oxford Classics, I don't think they have. Definitely don't have this. Yeah, I honorable mention to the Pegotis and Ham. These characters is like, you will love them throughout the book, and he makes sure that you do. And love, I think, is a very solid theme throughout Copperfield. I like any character that he will make you like. Normally, he will make you like them through the way they love things or other people. And that is sort of like for me a theme in this book. And another theme is always adversity, in Dickens' own way and in Dickens' own experience. That adversity presents itself in many different ways. For many people, it is adversity. But what I see for Dickens that really matters, more like as a philosophical stance than anything else, and that is sort of present throughout the book, is that those characters that are good, the reason why he sort of presents them as good is not so much because they behave as if they were good, but because they do it in adversity. Sort of like, the only way to confirm goodness is when these people is being good in adversity. I think that's definitely a theme, and also that is why I think Copperfield falls in love with Agnes. There is a quote that I feel like represents Dickens' idea of love. Also, sort of like part of like one of those values that I see imprinted in the narrative, which I'm just gonna read to you. I have it here, yeah. So yeah, no context, but he's talking to Agnes and he tells her, will you laugh at my saying that I really believe I felt even then that you could be faithfully affectionate against all discouragement and never cease to be so until you ceased to live? Will you laugh at such a dream? That you could be faithfully affectionate against all discouragement. I think that is both Dickens' idea of goodness, contains Dickens' idea of goodness, and his ideas on love. For Dickens, on my opinion, and so far, because I haven't read anything else, but this seems to be a very personal book, and therefore I take it that he was extremely sincere here, maybe. But that like love is irreverence towards adversity. And with that note, I'm gonna finish the review. Again, if you wanna take it on this edition, keep in mind this will happen, and more than that will happen as well. I tend to treat my books quite badly, mainly because I carry them around, and sometimes it rains, sometimes I have 10 more books in the backpack, and I like having books that survive me, because yes, at the end of the day, I use them, and if they fall apart, it doesn't really make any sense for me to have them. I'm looking forward to read some more Dickens. But as I said before, this is not a read that you do to like have a deep revelations about the meaning of life. I am reading currently Moby Dick, and I think it's that is one of those books that you read and you're like, oh my god, I understand why this book has the sort of like status that it has in the literary world. But this is not one of those books. This is one of those books that I understand why so many people loves it. Period. I loved it. I don't think that there is anything in this book for any person who has lived a little bit and is well read to sort of like be surprised from or anything. It's pretty much a familiar place. It's a walk in the park. It's for me a rest from other books that are more dense, more challenging, or yeah, that's all. And it's not bad. Like, I think his simplicity is part of his gift as a writer, and it's definitely something that I needed to read for my own writing learning experience. But that is all. I really liked it, and I highly recommend it. I think it's a great book to start with Dickens, and it definitely made me want to read more with time, not right after, definitely. But yeah, that's all.